Recording in progress. That's a beautiful voice. Well, once again, I'm Rick Moore, along with State Senator, State Minority Leader, Senator Bruce Tarr, from the State House, although working remotely today. And thank you once again, Senator, for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rick. It's always good to be with you, and it's great when we're both right down the street from each other, which we
I know
are.
that's pretty cool. We could have a can really going across the right? Something we didn't talk about in our warm-up, our pregame warm-up here, but this may be out of bounds. I hope not. But the heat, the drought, how has it affected your constituency, if at all, Senator? Have people gotten a hold of you about that, or is it something that obviously the whole state is looking at, maybe all of New England, and we're just kind of taking it easy?
Well, no, they sure have talked to me about it, Rick, and it's becoming an increasing concern every day as the drought continues and we're experiencing all kinds of difficulties. But it's been an issue for me for a long time. And as you may know, I actually chair the North Shore Water Supply Task Force, the Drought Resilience Task Force. And we've been working on this for a very long time. And that centers around the communities that have an interest in the Ipswich River and the Ipswich River watershed. And we have been putting together a coalition to deal with this as a region for the past 18 to 24 months. And in fact, we're making good progress. I was able to get $100,000 in the state budget to be able to start to study how we might interconnect communities and how we might create more water resources. So drought and water supply are an issue that are on my mind all the time. And I am so proud, Rick, of our region. Our legislators, our municipal officials, our environmental organizations are all collaborating. And we are actually on the verge of some pretty big news that I'll tell you is coming, and we'll be happy to share with you when it comes to fruition. But it definitely is an issue, and it's something, as you know, that I believe we need to be proactive about. We cannot waste the time in between droughts. We have to get out there ahead of it, and we have to find solutions and work on it so that when we're in the next drought, we've taken action and we can look ourselves in the eye and say we've done the right thing.
I can't believe how much territory you cover. My goodness gracious. And I don't mean that geographically. That's amazing. Well, along those lines, Senator, I talked with the Rockport Forest Fire Warden, Mike Frontero, an old buddy of mine, an old baseball and softball player. And they've had a rough week up there in Rockport with the brush fires. Gloucester has had some difficulty too. And you were on scene with the National Guard recently.
Actually, yesterday, and Mike was there, and all of the Rockport Board of Select people, as well as the town administrator and my colleague, Representative Ferranti. And we were there to see what was happening and to understand it. But also we were there to thank the folks that have come to help. So the National Guard was there, as were folks that work for the Department of Conservation and Recreation who deal with forest fire control. And Rick, it was really heartening to be in the woods yesterday with that group, watching the collaboration between very, very dedicated Rockport firefighters and, again, folks from the National Guard and folks from DCR, all working together to be able to address this very serious threat. They've certainly been making good progress. I'm not sure what the appropriate terminology would be in terms of it being under control or not being under control, but they've made significant progress in combating that fire. And I thought it was really important to be there just to say thank you and to understand how we can help in the future.
I think the word Mike used was contained. They're trying to contain it and build ditches, around a perimeter and so on. And I know when I was in the National Guard, this kind of thing was something that I would have welcomed to try to help out with, because at that time, way back, probably before you were in diapers, we were called for civil disturbance training because of Kent State and that kind of thing. And rather than that, this is the kind of thing I know that National Guardsmen are proud to do. And the other thing I think we should point out, Senator, is that the Rockport Fire Department is all volunteer.
Mm-hmm. They're a very dedicated group of individuals, and they certainly have proven over the years their dedication and their ability to deal with issues. But, one of the things, Rick, in this kind of a situation is the long-term effects of it. So when you have folks out there every single day, this is very labor intensive. It's not just taking a hose and spraying water on a fire. You're digging things up, you're cutting trees, And that takes its toll. And so as dedicated as they are and as hardworking as they are, they really needed help because there's an issue of fatigue that goes on here. So for the National Guard to come in was quite a welcome thing. And also we had a chance to talk with some of the experts that came from DCR who gave us a good explanation of that perimeter that you described and why it's important and what you have to do to maintain it. And so again, it was the very best of collaboration. It was the folks who are on the Rockport Fire Department showing where their heart is and really giving it their all, but also having some other folks come in and say, we're going to give you a hand. And it was also interesting, Rick, to see some of the equipment that the National Guard brought, some two very, very large firefighting trucks. If I have a chance, I'll send you a photo of me in front of one because
I've seen it on Tarr Talk.
I was amazed by it.
Yeah, something out of science fiction. Hey,
You
listen,
bet.
speaking of collaboration, without getting specific, tell me how good you feel about cooperation and collaboration in the Massachusetts legislature.
Well, I feel good about it. And it's something that we have to work at every day because there's always the temptation to have forces pull us apart and the temptation not to collaborate. But I'm very pleased with the fact that in the Massachusetts Senate, we do have collaboration and we do work through issues. And it doesn't mean that we always agree, but it does mean that we have a civilized, respectful process where we have discussions. And in fact, in the pregame, as you call it, we were talking about a debate that happened at about 1 a.m. On the last day of the session, which was actually Sunday, but it went into Monday morning, where we had an amazing debate about criminal justice and public safety that went on for a fairly long period of time. And the subject of the debate was the dangerousness issue that Governor Baker had been working on with Lieutenant Governor Polito of trying to expand the ability of the courts to hold people that are a danger to themselves and to the community and give some more tools in that respect. And I was very pleased that despite the fact that the measure hadn't gotten much traction in committee, it had been rejected by the House, that in the Senate we took the time to discuss it, to try to find some common ground. I offered an amendment that reflected that consensus. And after a very spirited, passionate, and respectful debate in which some of the participants did not agree with me, we find consensus, and by a 30-8 vote, that amendment passed. And as I was saying to you off air, Rick, that to me reflected the very best of the Senate. And I respect those that didn't vote with me. But I actually think it was a process that is exemplary in terms of how we should operate.
As an educator or a former educator, I'm really glad to hear that because that's what we hope for in our government, whether it's local, regional, or national. So I'm glad to hear that about good old Massachusetts. What's next for the legislature?
Well, that's a great question. And it's one where there's a fair degree of uncertainty. When the formal session ended on Monday morning, it was sometime between 10 and 11 a.m. We had a lot of unfinished business. And the biggest example of that is the economic development bill on which there was no agreement and no final action. And you may recall that economic development bill contained a very significant tax cut package and a very significant number of investments in various things, many of which were for our region right here on Cape Ann. In the end, the conferees between the House and the Senate didn't agree on a final reconciled bill, and therefore the House and the Senate weren't able to act. Now, the difficulty, Rick, is that we're now in informal session. And so anything that would be passed would have to be the product of unanimous agreement, because any member can object in an informal session to something coming up. So there has been some discussion, given the magnitude of these issues, of maybe suspending our rules and coming back for a special session to deal with that bill and those set of issues. And it's the subject of a lot of debate. In order for the rules to be suspended, we would need to have a 2/3 vote, and the 2/3 vote would have to be of people present, because the emergency rules that we've been operating under that allow for remote participation expired with the formal session. So there are a lot of moving pieces to this. and a lot of discussion about whether we should come back or not. And I would also say that, part of the complicating factor here is Mass General Laws Chapter 62F, which is the law that was passed by initiative petition that caps the amount of tax revenue that we could collect and provides for rebates when we exceed that amount. And that is something we probably won't know the full impact of, until September. So there's some discussion of when we know that, and maybe if we can reach an agreement in the conference committee on the economic development bill, maybe we'll come back. If that doesn't happen, then we don't come back into formal session until January of next year. But what's important for me to emphasize is, and we've talked about this before, the Constitution requires us to meet every 72 hours. So the House and the Senate continue to meet. You might read that, we're all on vacation, and, certainly we have more flexibility right now. But in the Senate, generally speaking, every Monday and every Thursday, but in all instances, twice a week, usually, we meet. Now, there's not a chamber full of people there. There's usually one member of each party, and all the staff are there. But we still are meeting, and we'll continue to do that because we're required to do it constitutionally. The question is, will we come into a formal session?
Okay, end of summer activities for Senator Tarr locally?
Well, there's a lot of events going on, and I've been pleased to get to them. I went to a lot of events in Rockport. Last Saturday, it was Illumination Weekend in Rockport. I helped to make a couple of lanterns, and I had the opportunity to read to some kids and walk through the downtown. Coming up tomorrow in Gloucester is the Rotary Pancake Breakfast, and I'll be flipping pancakes early in the morning. And then something we all should remember as well is that tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock, so Saturday at 5, is the Fisherman's Memorial Service on the Boulevard, and I hope we're going to see a lot of folks there. So a lot of things happening, Rick, and one thing I wanted to mention is the 70th International Dory Races are taking place on Saturday. It is now our turn to go to Canada, so a group has left and is in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, our sister city, and those races will be held tomorrow morning. Unfortunately, I won't be there because you can't be two places at once, but my heart will be there and my spirit will be there with just a great crew of people from the International Dory Race Association.
You were born 1,000 years too soon, because 1,000 years from now, you could clone yourself and be in a couple.
I'm not sure the world is ready for two of me, but at any rate.